ranking every single Wunderwaffe from World at War to the present day. Over the years in the main COD titles, there has been 6 different variants of this iconic weapon, and our journey begins in Black Ops 4 with number 6, the Wunderwaffe DG Scharfschütze. This weapon, found exclusively in Tag der Toten, was actually the first time we saw the Wunderwaffe get a complete rework in terms of functionality. On the side of the weapon, you can see the marking DG1, which implies that this version of the Wunderwaffe predates the DG2 that we know and love. Now, the reason why this is at the bottom of the ranking is because fundamentally, these changed mechanics make this weapon a lot less reliable to use. This is because at its core, the Wunderwaffe is a wonder weapon, and wonder weapons are primarily designed to get you out of sticky situations. Weapons like the Thunder Gun are great at this because all you have to do is shoot and your problems are solved. With the Wunderwaffe DG Scharfschütze, however, this weapon requires accuracy, which most other wonder weapons don't need. Whilst it has a faster fire rate than that of the DG2, everything else is effectively a downgrade. I mean, to start, the energy arc won't even trigger from shooting the floor like the DG2 does. With this weapon, you have to get a direct hit for it to actually function. Not only this, but a standard direct hit, whether pack-a-punched or not, will only kill about 3 to 5 zombies, which is terrible in comparison to the DG2s we'll be touching on later. But as implied by the name, which from German translates to sharpshooter, the correct way to use this weapon is to get headshots. In doing so, the unupgraded and pack-a-punched versions of this weapon seem to kill around 11 zombies in a dense crowd with a headshot. But going back to what I said at the beginning, this being a wonder weapon, it's kind of a bit weird to expect to have to be accurate in order to use it properly. As a result, this weapon just isn't reliable in life or death situations, which kind of fundamentally goes against what this weapon is supposed to do. I mean, it's definitely cool that they tried to experiment and try something new with the Wunderwaffe formula, and I'm here for that. I like it, but on paper, this is a drastic downgrade from the DG2 that we know and love. I will say though, to its credit, in terms of design, it definitely looks dope as hell. I mean, I love this design. I love the way it's animated. I love the effects. I even kind of like the addition of a sniper scope. It's just a very cool, well-designed weapon. But I have to rank it this low just because I can't really let that performance slide. That being said though, if you're someone that can be consistently accurate, you actually would get way more kills with this version of the Wunderwaffe before needing a max ammo than versus a DG2. That's because a headshot still gets you around 10 to 11 kills, but you get way more reserve ammo in the DG Scharfschütze. Now, of course, you have to remember that if you miss a shot by shooting the floor, it won't start an energy arc, so you've just wasted around there. But again, if you are consistently accurate, this weapon is actually pretty damn good. And to add to that, you can also spawn power drops by using the DG Scharfschütze, which is another massive pro. But a large chunk of the community were kind of against the idea of needing skill to use a wonder weapon. And to be honest, me personally, whilst I don't necessarily agree with that, this just strays way too far from the path of what a Wunderwaffe truly feels like. So this is the spot that the Wunderwaffe DG Scharfschütze has earned on this list. Before we move on to the next one though, I do want to touch on the fact that Tag der Toten also played host, surprisingly, to a DG2 in this map. It's in the files of the game. You can't obviously access it in the base version, but using cheats and console commands and stuff like that, you can get your hands on this version of the Wunderwaffe. Now, this is a Wunderwaffe DG2, and you can also get the DG3. And besides the light bulbs on the side of the weapon being misaligned by 90 degrees, it literally works. It completely functions, which is pretty cool. And I said this in my history of the Wunderwaffe video. If you haven't actually seen that video, definitely check it out because we dive into all of the fun facts and all of the history behind this awesome weapon, and definitely one of my more underrated videos. So definitely check that out. But one thing I did notice about this version of the Wunderwaffe is that it actually goes past the 10 kill chain that we see in pretty much every other version of the DG2. This version from Black Ops 4, for some unknown reason, can kill up to a full 24 zombie crowd, which is wild to think about. But as you can't actually get this weapon properly, I'm not going to include it in this list. So moving up to rank number 5, we head to World at War with the Wunderwaffe DG2. Of course, every other entry into this list from here on out is going to be a version of the Wunderwaffe DG2. And it kind of pains me to put the World at War version this far down the list, and I think everyone knows why I have to do it. It still breaks my heart though. Now, of course, this is where the Wunderwaffe was first introduced in 2009 with Shi no Numa, found in Map Pack 2. Now, something that's interesting about the Shi no Numa variant of the Wunderwaffe is that this version could actually drop power-ups when you were killing zombies. Though this was incredibly rare, it could actually happen. So it was extraordinarily overpowered when considering that you could literally just shoot at the floor or just anywhere in the general vicinity of a zombie and it could chain up to 10 zombies with a single shot. This weapon was unbelievable at the time and was also the second ever wonder weapon we got following the ray gun. And it was also the first wonder weapon we ever got that dealt infinite damage. The design was striking. The sound design is my personal favorite thing about it. It felt like the weapon had like a kind of cute persona. It would make random electrical noises and it was just fun. It was just such a unique thing to see. It had personality and it was freaking brutal. Like what it would actually do would have most players who used it for the first time just have their jaw on the floor. Like it was so incredible at the time to see this. It's simply iconic. There's no other term for it. It's an iconic weapon. And in Der Riese, it only got better, at least on paper, because in Der Riese, of course, they introduced the Pack-a-Punch machine, and then we could upgrade this thing to the DG3JZ, which amongst other things buffed the ammo count. Now, things to note is that in the Der Riese version, the Wunderwaffe no longer drops power drops, and also this is where we became accustomed to the infamous Juggernaut glitch, which is the reason why the World at War Wunderwaffe is ranked at number 5. Now, for those who don't know what this glitch was basically if you accidentally inflicted splash damage upon yourself whilst using the Wunderwaffe in Der Riese, it would not only damage you, but it would actually break your health regeneration, which means that you are permanently at a state of low health. This means even with Juggernog, it's very likely that one hit is going to take you down immediately, no matter how long it's been since you accidentally hit yourself with that Wunderwaffe shot. Combine this with the fact that the World at War version of Quick Revive didn't have self-revive functionality as that was introduced in Black Ops, it altogether meant that the Wunderwaffe was quite literally a death trap to use. So as a result, this was a major deal breaker in terms of using the Wunderwaffe in solo play. Now, what's interesting is that in Shi No Numa, this didn't actually happen. This is something that only affected players in Der Riese. And it's just incredibly disappointing that for some reason, they managed to break something that wasn't broken before, and they never actually repaired it. They never actually patched the game to fix this issue. So as a result, as much as I hate to do it, the World at War DG2 has to sit way down at number 5. Even though in my opinion, it's one of the best feeling Wunderwaffes we got. But moving up and moving on, up next, we take a trip to Vanguard. Now, the Wunderwaffe DG2 in Vanguard has a few pros and a few cons. First off, it's in Vanguard. That's a major con for this weapon, of course, but I can't hold that against the weapon itself. So I will say there are a few cool things about it. First off, you could actually build this Wunderwaffe. You collected parts by doing effectively a quest to obtain it, which was actually pretty sick to do. I liked the steps. It was engaging. It was actually very fun. I was very surprised to be enjoying myself in Vanguard building the Wunderwaffe in Shi No Numa. The other cool thing about it are the animations, and the overall design of this version of the Wunderwaffe was actually very impressive. It's very clean, it's very highly detailed, the effects look great, and like I say, the animations are super nice, and I'm particularly talking about that inspect animation. Getting an inspect anim on a Wunderwaffe was so sick. No one can deny that. Nobody can take that from Vanguard. It was actually very dope to see. In terms of the look and feel of the weapon, they actually did an amazing job with this. Now, what's nice about it as well is coming off the back of the World at War entry at number 5, this, as well as every other version of the Wunderwaffe in this list, won't get you one hit downed just for shooting it too close to yourself. But something that this version of the Wunderwaffe did horribly wrong is, for some reason, it seemed to have taken inspiration from the DG Scharfschütze, in that for whatever reason, they made it so you have to shoot a direct hit in order for the Wunderwaffe to start its energy arc. So unlike every other variant of the DG2, you cannot shoot this thing at the floor and expect to get anything out of it. This is like incredibly disappointing because, again, that's one of the charms of the DG2, and especially in terms of getting you out of sticky situations, is that you can just panic, you can just shoot roughly in the general area of where the zombies are, and you'll get results. Whereas this version, you have to make a connection, a direct connection, in order to get those kills. Now, to its credit, it is a very powerful version of the Wunderwaffe, not in terms of actual chain damage. It's still limited to pretty much 10 zombies per shot. However, there are bosses in this version of Shinonuma that are very strong, and all of them can be taken down in one shot if you Pack-a-Punch the Wunderwaffe DG2 enough times on this map. Because again, Vanguard did have tiered Pack-a-Punch, and you can take this Wunderwaffe into the Pack-a-Punch machine all 3 times to buff that damage against the bosses. Naturally, against normal zombies, it will always consistently one-shot kill no matter what version or Pack-a-Punch tier you have. Take all of these things into consideration though, and the Vanguard Wunderwaffe is actually not that bad. In fact, it actually introduced a bunch of very welcome features. The only downside is that it's in Vanguard, and again, starting an energy arc from splash damage doesn't happen. But besides from that, I think it actually deserves its spot in this list. But now we're moving up to the top 3 versions of the Wunderwaffe DG2, and for number 3, we're heading into Black Ops 3. With the Black Ops 3 DG2, it was actually the first time we saw a complete makeover for this weapon since its original version in World at War. It came with a new model, new animations, as well as some new effects as well. But straight off the bat, I have to say one thing, and it's going to be controversial. I think they actually butchered the soul of the Wunderwaffe with this version. Compare it to the Wunderwaffe from World at War and Black Ops, and I don't know, I can't quite put my finger on it, but it feels like the soul is a little more detached. There's kind of like a little bit of a lack of personality compared to the previous versions, and I think it might be due to some of the changes that they made to the animations as well as the sound design. But to be fair, that's more about personal preference. Overall, Treyarch did an amazing job in terms of remodeling and redesigning this weapon. It looked absolutely beautiful at the time, even to this day, to be honest. And it also came with 1 or 2 welcome changes in terms of performance. For one, self-inflicted splash damage was reduced quite dramatically compared to the previous versions. And also, unlike previous versions, this one could actually deal damage to more than just 10 zombies with a single shot. However, this came with one major downside, and that's that those extra zombies that were affected by the shot would very often turn into crawlers, which to me is just not right. The fact that a Wunderwaffe can actually make crawlers, it just seems criminal to me. But again, these were typically surplus zombies to the 10 that you would pretty much guarantee to wipe out with your shot from the DG2. So it was effectively a trade-off. But overall, the Black Ops 3 DG2 was very well made and is kind of like the first Wunderwaffe in this list that doesn't come with some kind of major drawback. This thing delivered on what it promised. It was a true Wunderwaffe and functioned like one without any weird glitches or complete deal breakers. So overall, decent weapon, and it deserves its spot in number 3. Now moving up to number 2, this is going to be controversial, but I'm just kind of trying to spit facts here. I'm trying to be unbiased. Can you tell? I'm trying to be unbiased. We're rolling into MWZ. Now, the MWZ Wunderwaffe, it deserves the number 2 spot. It just does. I'm sorry. The reason why is because it is effectively the Vanguard Wunderwaffe, which I absolutely loved. It looked nice. It felt nice. The animations were gorgeous, but this fixed the problem with the splash damage not starting the energy arc. So this Wunderwaffe functions just like the classic Wunderwaffes as it should, with no weird glitch or drawback or anything like that. It's just a much higher quality model with much nicer animations and much nicer effects. This really isn't a hard one for me to sell. I know the fact that it's in MWZ is going to make people think that it doesn't deserve its spot in the number 2 list, but the games that these weapons are from are completely irrelevant. This is about celebrating the actual Wunderwaffe itself, and the Modern Warfare 3 Wunderwaffe is just really good. It just is. If this version of the Wunderwaffe is the same one that we might see in Black Ops 6, I'm going to be very happy because they did an unbelievable job with this version. There's not much more to say on it because, again, fundamentally, it is just a Wunderwaffe from Vanguard, but it fixed my one issue that I had with it. And so, in my opinion, it deserves its spot at number 2. But moving up, of course, we're going to Black Ops for number 1. And I am so glad that this version of the Wunderwaffe exists because it damn near killed me to put the World at War DG2 at number 5. Effectively, the Black Ops Wunderwaffe is just the World at War Wunderwaffe with the bugs removed. That's fundamentally what it is. The sound design is pretty much one-to-one. The model is pretty much one-to-one, as are the animations and the general feel of it. The character is still there. The personality, the brutality of how it feels to shoot and annihilate crowds with it, it's all still there. It's all still distilled in this version, except Splash damage no longer destroys your health regeneration. In fact, it was actually reduced as well, I think, the general damage you take from it. And not only that, they even went one step further and made the Pack-a-Punch version have a gold-plated camo, which is so sick because everyone knows, even the whole multiplayer community knows, that the Black Ops 1 gold camo was easily the best that COD has ever seen. And I just very much appreciate that they decided to, out of the blue, put it on the Wunderwaffe when you upgrade it on Der Riese. This, to me, is the perfect Wunderwaffe. It just is. It's still the best, and you kind of have to play it yourself and relive it to kind of understand why. Again, a lot of it is to do with sound design. The sound design of this particular version, as well as, you know, the World at War version, which is effectively the same thing, was just 10 out of 10, and it really made the weapon elevated in terms of how it felt to use. It was also pretty cool that this version of the Wunderwaffe also saw its way into Call of the Dead as the Easter egg reward that, of course, echoed on whenever you got rid of George Romero. Unfortunately, you couldn't keep it in your inventory in this map or Pack-a-Punch it, but still, it was a very welcome addition to this map. But there's not much more to add to it than that, because again, we touched on most of the positives when we were speaking about the World at War version, and this is the same thing, but just improved. And that, to be honest, was all I needed. This is hands down the best Wunderwaffe we ever got. And that concludes this list. Lads, ladies and gentlemen, I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.